Chapter 1.1 The Structure and Function of the Skeletal System, Part 2. So in this video, we're going to look at the different types of synovial joint. So first, we're going to start off by asking the question, what is a joint? So a joint is where two or more bones meet within the body. And all joints differ in terms of the range of movement they allow. And so this allows us to categorise joints according to these particular movements. So the first category we've got is what we call fibrous or fixed joints. And these are joints that don't allow any movement whatsoever. So in between these, in between the bones, they're fixed together, and that prevents any movement from taking place. And this is particularly important as they often occur in areas that need a lot of protection, such as the cranium. So the cranium is made up of a lot of individual bones that are all fixed together and won't allow any movement. Which, if you think about it, is really important, because if the cranium did allow any movement, then that would allow damage to occur to the brain. So the second category we got is what we call cartilaginous or slightly movable joints. And as the name suggests, these are joints that allow a small degree of movement to take place. So a classic example of these are in between the vertebrae in the vertebral column. So individually, they only allow a little bit of movement to take place, but as a group, as a collective, then allow a greater range of movement to take place. But the most common type of joint we have is what we call a synovial joint, and these allow the greatest range of movement. So, what is a synovial joint? Well, the key term or the definition that we need to know for a synovial joint is as follows: a freely movable joint in which the bone surfaces are covered by a cartilage called articular cartilage and connected by a fibrous connective tissue capsule, which is otherwise known as a joint capsule, lined with synovial fluid. So it's important that you actually get to grips with that particular definition and you do know it off by heart. So we've got different types of synovial joint then, and as previously, these are all kind of categorized according to the range of movement that they allow. So the two most common joints that we have within this umbrella of synovial joint are hinge joints and ball and socket joints. But we also have what we call pivot joints, gliding joints, and saddle joints as well. So, hinge joints. These allow movement in one plane, pretty much like a door hinge. So it'll go one way and then it'll come back in the complete opposite direction. These can be found at the knee and the elbow. So if you look at the diagram, there's a bit of a technical diagram. You don't need to know all the information there, but these, as you know with your knee, you can bend your knee and then straighten your knee, so that's moving in one particular plane. So as I've already mentioned then, the knee joint, we need to know what we call the articulating bones. And articulating bones are bones that move within a joint. So within the knee, the articulating bones are the femur and the tibia. So the femurs are located above the knee joint, and as we know, the tibia is located below the knee joint. With the elbow joint then, the articulating bones within the elbow joint are the humerus, the radius, and the ulna. So as we know, the humerus is the bone above the elbow, running from the elbow to the shoulder, and then we have the thinner radius and the ulna located in the lower arm between the elbow and the wrist. Moving on to the second category then is ball and socket joints. And these allow a wide range of movement in many planes. So by that we mean it can move in one direction then the other. So it's not like the knee that only moves, kind of bends and extending. These particular joints allow you to move in all directions. And the reason that is possible is because there's a round head to one of the bones, which then fits into a cup-shaped depression of another. So if you look in the diagram there, the hip joint, you can see the top of the femur's got a rounded head, which then fits into that depression within the pelvis. So as you can see, these particular joints can be found at the hip and the shoulder. So the hip joint then, the important bones, or the articulating bones that we need to know about here, are the pelvis and the femur. So the pelvis, as we know, is the bigger bone in the hip, and the femur is the big bone in our upper leg that runs from our hip to our knee. Moving on to the shoulder joint, the articulating bones here are the humerus and the scapula. So the humerus, which is the bigger bone in our upper arm, that fits into the depression within the scapula. So remember, the scapula is what commonly we call the shoulder blade, but for the purpose of GCSE, we need to refer to it as the scapula. And that then is an overview of all the synovial joints within the body that you need to be aware of. What you need to do now is to fill in your flip learning handsheet. Make sure you fill in all the questions there and you come to the lesson prepared and fully understanding all these particular joints.